And I wanted to share with you a bit the experience in Glastonbury because it's so special and so soulful. And what it's making me realize, even last night, I was having downloads all night. I didn't sleep well. My soul was communicating with me. I was having really, really deep, just like very clear gnosis, like messages knowing about the soul, probably prepping for this call. But there is a very clear experience here that the soul is more accessible in certain places, like in Glastonbury. One of the effects of this, the calmness I'm constantly feeling, the spaciousness. I just sit and read for hours. Usually I feel distracted or I feel I want to pick up my phone. There's so much of this feeling. And what I realized, how much the lands really affect us where we are. And for many of you who've been here for over a year maybe, you've noticed that me tuning in also from different places brings different energies. And it's so important to recognize how much the places we live in affect us, for good or for worse. For good in knowing that certain places, like these sacred places we travel to, Glastonbury, Ibiza, Bali. And by the way, Bali is not an easy energy, but it is sacred. It's quite intense, okay? So I'm not saying all these lands are lands of light. But مثلا Dahab and Glastonbury are the two places I feel the most peaceful. I feel spaciousness. I feel this thing that we're used to scrolling infinitely in. I have no interest in even touching it in these places. And other lands, for example, and by the way, ladies, I'm one of the people who really, really, really honors and loves the land, my homeland. So Jordan for me was something so important to return to. I lived abroad my whole life, and at the age of 25, I returned. And I felt for the first time in my life at home. I felt this homecoming. I felt the homeland. I felt my connection with the land. Not the nation, not the boundaries, not all these modern inventions that we've created, but the land itself. That being said, there is an experience I have every time I go back that over several months, there's a heaviness that picks up. And part of the truth is the collective. It really affects us, how the collective is operating and thinking, and whether they're loving the land, giving to the land, for example, like in Bali, where you see the ceremonies every day, or people are just complaining how much they hate the land. And in Amman, you see a lot of this hating on the land. Wherever you are, you can always be part of this agency for change in making people more aware of how they're talking about these lands, because the energy we put in is going to be coming back. So places like Amman for me, even though I love her from the deepest place in my heart, she is my mother, like it's my homeland, it's my motherland. What I realized, especially through my dream last night, where this deep knowing of what's happening here is that the soul is so accessible in this land. It's insane. It's very hard to describe, but it's very, very clear. It's the opposite in Amman for me. It's so hard for me to connect with my soul. But it doesn't mean you cannot. It just means that you have to put so much more effort to make sure you do your practice, to make sure you are in communion with your soul when you meditate, to be a part of bringing more spaces of the soul. Because one of the things you recognize, or you start to observe, I started to observe, is places where the soul is accessible are more vast. There's more nature. There's more parks. Even the places we go hang out here in, the wells. You imagine where you're going to hang out is the spring water coming from the earth, and it's healing water. It has a lot of mythologies, a lot of healing powers. There's two. There's the chalice well and there's the white spring. So this is where people go hang out, by the sacred springs. Same, even the park we go to, it's called the Abbey. Huge green park. It's a sacred space. They say it's where they found the remains of King Arthur and Guinevere, one of these beautiful mythical love stories. But what I'm saying is the way people are relating to the land, what they have created for hundreds and thousands of years in creating the story of Glastonbury, which many people say behind it actually is Avalon. Avalon is the real thing we are connecting with, which is the heart. And Glastonbury is just the portal. So you can get distracted and, there's a lot of shops and people dressed up in all kinds of costumes. It's so cute, but that's not really the thing that makes the soul available. And so realizing that some places really allow the soul space to easily be tuned into, you start to see, okay, if I really care about my soul, I have two choices. I always have these two options. One is I travel more to these places so that at least I have that signature. At least I know what that feels like. At least I know that's available. And number two, I really make it a point to cultivate the soul space in me if I am in a dense space, in a space where the veil between matter and spirit is more separate.